Imagine waking up to discover that the South China Sea, one of the most important maritime routes on the planet, has become the stage of a direct confrontation, with ships struck, crews affected, and accusations flying from all sides. This is not fiction, it is reality. What once seemed like a purely diplomatic tension has now taken shape at sea, and the entire world is watching closely. The incident involved the Chinese Coast Guard and Philippine vessels near Scarborough Shoal, a disputed area for decades that has now become the epicenter of a silent struggle between Beijing and Manila. According to official reports, more than 10 Philippine vessels were targeted by high-pressure water cannons fired from Chinese Coast Guard ships. The impact was so intense that it caused structural damage and left at least one crew compromised. Images soon spread across social media, showing ships rocking dangerously under the powerful jets, with sailors trying to shield themselves amid the chaos. China insists it was only defending its sovereignty, while the Philippines accuse Beijing of a deliberate act of intimidation. But what might look like a local clash goes far beyond that. The South China Sea accounts for nearly 1/3 of global maritime trade and holds immense reserves of oil and gas. Every reef, every disputed island represents billions in wealth and strategic power. For this reason, any shock in the region quickly turns into a global issue. It's no exaggeration to say that this incident could be one of the most dangerous flashpoints in current geopolitics, because it's not just about boats and fishermen, it's about who controls the arteries that sustain the world economy. And the question remains, are we witnessing just another isolated episode, or are we on the verge of an escalation that could draw in the United States, Japan, and the entire Asia-Pacific into open confrontation? Before we go further, leave your comment. Do you believe this incident could escalate into a regional dispute? Your opinion might bring new perspectives to this debate that sooner or later will affect us all. Scarborough Shoal, where the incident occurred, is not just a random patch of sea. For China, it is a non-negotiable part of its 9-dash line, a controversial map used by Beijing to claim nearly the entire South China Sea. For the Philippines, it is a vital fishing ground, a source of livelihood for thousands of families, and part of its exclusive economic zone, recognized by international treaties. This clash between historical maps and international law creates a geopolitical minefield where any spark could ignite an explosion. The intensity of September's episode was not unprecedented, but it marked a significant escalation. The Chinese Coast Guard not only blocked vessels, but also used water cannons repeatedly, causing serious damage and directly affecting crews. For many analysts, this is more than just a warning. It is a calculated attempt to pressure Manila into backing down from its patrols in the area. Yet the Philippine response was immediate. The government denounced the incident and called on allies to discuss countermeasures. And that's where a bilateral dispute begins to turn into a global chessboard. The United States, bound by a mutual defense treaty with the Philippines since the Cold War, has already made it clear that any action against Philippine vessels could be interpreted as an action against itself. This statement is not symbolic. It means that, in theory, the current incident could serve as a trigger for US involvement. At the same time, Japan and Australia expressed support for Manila, increasing the pressure on Beijing. On the Chinese side, the official rhetoric remains that it will not accept provocations, accusing the Philippines of intruding into sovereign waters. The result is an explosive stalemate. Every word, every naval maneuver, every diplomatic note increases the risk of direct confrontation between powers. And as history has shown, when vital economic interests and national pride collide, diplomacy often gives way to displays of force. The South China Sea, more than ever, has become Asia's powder keg. To grasp the weight of this episode, one must look beyond the immediate clash and examine the web of interests entangled in the South China Sea. This is not just a dispute between Beijing and Manila. It is a stage where regional and global powers collide. China, through its Coast Guard and maritime militias, seeks to establish de facto control over strategic areas. The Philippines, on the other hand, view the territory as central to their sovereignty and economic survival. But in reality, it's not only China testing the limits, it's the entire international order built after World War II. When China unleashes water cannons against Philippine boats, the message goes far beyond local fishermen. It is a direct challenge to international norms, such as the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, which in 2016 ruled in favor of the Philippines and invalidated Beijing's claims. China's refusal to recognize that ruling demonstrates how international law without enforcement risks becoming meaningless. This sends a dangerous signal to other global hotspots. If a powerful state chooses to ignore treaties, who will stop it? In this vacuum, the United States positions itself as the protector of its allies. Washington has already stepped up its freedom of navigation patrols in the region, sending destroyers and reconnaissance aircraft. Yet every US entry is also a provocation to Beijing, which denounces these missions as violations of sovereignty. The rhetoric from both sides is loaded with veiled threats. Washington recalls its mutual defense treaty with Manila, while Beijing promises to defend its waters at any cost. This deadlock creates an escalating cycle. Every naval encounter, every military drill, every diplomatic protest pushes the situation one step closer to the breaking point. The latest episode, with damaged vessels and impacted crews, is not just an accident. It is part of a larger contest over who sets the rules in the 21st century. The South China Sea is not just geography. It is the mirror of the struggle between a rising multipolar world and a fading international order. The immediate impact of the clash goes far beyond the damaged ships. In the hours that followed, the governments of Manila and Beijing exchanged public accusations, each trying to control the narrative. China claimed its actions were defensive against vessels entering sovereign waters, while the Philippines denounced the episode as an unjustifiable act. The result was a diplomatic chain reaction. Ambassadors were summoned, official protests issued, and the incident made international headlines. The repercussions show that the matter will not stay confined to the sea. The Philippine government is already discussing with Washington the possibility of new joint patrols, which will inevitably be seen by China as provocation. Meanwhile, Australia and Japan expressed solidarity with Manila, deepening Beijing's diplomatic isolation. This pattern is dangerous. The more allies get involved, the higher the risk of turning a territorial dispute into an international crisis. Domestically, the episode also fuels nationalist narratives. In the Philippines, pressure is mounting for a stronger stance against China, while in Beijing, state media portrays the incident as proof that the country is under constant external threat. This rivalry feeds a vicious cycle. Diplomacy weakens, rhetoric intensifies, and the risk of further incidents grows. And what if the next incident doesn't end with just damaged vessels, but with more serious human consequences? That's the question analysts are asking, and the one that may decide whether there is still room for diplomacy or whether we are heading towards something far more dangerous. The US response to the South China Sea incident could be the decisive factor in shaping the crisis. Washington has already made it clear in previous statements that any action against Philippine vessels could be treated as an act against an ally under the Mutual Defense Treaty. A declaration often dismissed as theoretical deterrence now takes on practical weight. If the US chooses to intensify joint patrols with Manila, it would represent not only military support, but also a direct warning to Beijing. One wrong move could be costly. The reaction will not be limited to warships. Analysts suggest the White House could reinforce its aerial presence, expand regional military exercises, and accelerate logistics agreements with partners such as Japan and Australia. These moves carry both symbolic and strategic weight, signaling that Washington is committed to defending the Pacific status quo. However, they also raise the risk of even more dangerous incidents. A misinterpreted overflight, a naval maneuver in disputed waters, or an accident in congested seas could serve as a trigger for uncontrolled escalation. For China, accepting US joint patrols near Scarborough Shoal would be a humiliation. Therefore, Beijing is likely to respond with more ships, more patrols, and possibly new acts of intimidation. The logic is simple. Neither side wants to back down because backing down means losing prestige and opening the door to further concessions. The result is a perilous game of show of force, where every move carries the risk of turning tension into open confrontation. Neighboring countries watch the crisis with a mix of concern and pragmatism. For Vietnam and Malaysia, which also have disputes with China, the incident is a warning that Beijing is willing to use direct force to consolidate its claims. For Singapore and Indonesia, which try to balance economic ties with China and security ties with Washington, each clash is a troubling reminder that neutrality may become unsustainable. Japan, meanwhile, reinforces its position alongside the Philippines, seeing in the crisis an opportunity to tighten its alliance with the United States and justify expanding its own military capabilities. It is not only about solidarity. Tokyo knows that any Chinese success in the South China Sea would embolden Beijing in the East China Sea disputes. Australia follows the same line, deepening military cooperation and signaling readiness to support Manila in international forums. This chain reaction shows how an incident that seemed localized can redefine the regional balance. Each country is forced to take a stand, revealing alliances, fears, and strategic interests. The risk is clear. The more actors enter the stage, the harder it becomes to manage the crisis. The multiplication of alliances and commitments increases the chance that even a small naval clash could ignite a spark that spreads across Asia. The confrontation in the South China Sea is not just about ships colliding in disputed waters. It embodies the clash of two worldviews. On one side, China determined to expand its influence and consolidate sovereignty over strategic regions. On the other, a network of countries relying on the United States to preserve regional balance and keep open one of the world's most critical trade arteries. It is on this board that not only Asia's fate, but the very shape of the international order is being decided. The danger lies in the fact that, unlike crises of the past, today the channels of dialogue are weakened. Beijing does not recognize international rulings that go against its claims, while Washington refuses to concede ground in an area vital to its global prestige. In this context, every naval encounter, every vessel struck, every impacted crew can become a symbol of something much greater. Escalation does not need a major attack, just a miscalculation, an overreaction, or an accident. The most recent episode is a warning that we are closer than ever to a major crisis. The question now is simple but unsettling. Is the world prepared to face a naval showdown at the heart of Asia? Or is there still room for diplomacy before the sea itself becomes the stage for an irreversible conflict? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Do you believe this standoff could explode into a regional confrontation, or will it remain just another chapter in the long struggle for power between China and its neighbors?